We are now joined by Todd Volkert, the varsity girls track coach at Sherrard. Todd, you've been doing this for, I think you told me, 31 years and head coach for 25 years. And you're now being inducted into the Illinois Track and Cross Country Coaches Association Hall of Fame. Congratulations for that. Let's start there. When you got the call to get started, to get inducted in the Hall of Fame, what was the first thing that kind of went through your mind?
It's kind of a surprise because you never expect something like that. You never aspire to do that. You just want to be the best person you can be for the kids and be the best coach you can be for the kids. So when I got the phone call, it was really surprising and kind of humbling. So
Mhm. Since that call, it's been maybe a week or two or whatever it's been. Has it kind of set in? Have you thought about it a little bit and like, wow, this is really special?
yeah, I'm one of those people. I'm always looking forward, and the only time I ever look backward is to try to figure out what I did wrong, and then try to move forward there and correct it. So, it's forced me, I guess, to step out of my normal routine and look back on everything we've accomplished between me and my assistants, and all the great kids that we've had.
Mhm. So you started this, you said back in 1995 as an assistant coach. How does one get involved with track? Is it something that you were passionate about when you were growing up? Is it something you did growing up? How did you become passionate about track?
I started track when I was a freshman in high school. And so then I ran in high school and I won a state championship in high school. And then I went on and ran at college. And at that point in time, as I was figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, I kind of fell upon the fact that I want to teach, and I had an outstanding high school coach, and he had a big impact on my life. And I kind of wanted to follow along in his footsteps and hope that maybe, if I don't screw things up too bad along the way, I can, have an effect that he had on me.
So you said you ran in high school and college. What distances? What did you do? What was your events?
My primary event was the half mile. I'd
Okay.
run the 400, but I wasn't quite fast enough to cut it there. And running longer than that, well, it's longer than that. And so I really enjoyed running the 800. It seemed to be the perfect distance for me.
What was it that drew you in when you first started running? Because the 800 is not an easy race. But then to do it through high school, college, and then obviously do it now as part of your profession, what drew you in?
You know, I I've always been a competitive person. It doesn't matter what it is. I didn't like to lose. And as I got older, I'm not a very big person. I think I weighed like 120 pounds when I graduated high school. So I wasn't really big enough to do just about any other sport. So I got into running. I started having some success, and the 800 was a hard enough race where you had to be able to tolerate a little bit of discomfort, and I never minded the pain because I always thought I could take more than the person next to me, and so that kind of drew me into that race.
You mentioned your track coach. Who was your track coach, and how much of an influence did they have?
It was Jim Boughton, and boy, at the time he was just my coach. You never really realize the impact people have on your life until you look back and you're older and can really reflect on it. So,
Sure.
was really just such a positive role model, always looking to draw the best out of every kid. And he would always tell us, if I had the fastest kid and the slowest kid, then I know I'm doing something right because everybody wants to be part of it. And so
Sure.
and that really stuck with me.
When you started in high school, what were some of the challenges, especially starting out? Because obviously you had gone through the events and you'd gone through the wars and the battles and the things that they had gone through. What were some of the challenges as a coach that you kind of faced when you first started out?
The first one was just really learning the sport. I mean, I came in, and when I first started, I was in charge of the middle distance group. And man, if you would have asked me to do triple jump, I would have had to say, how do you do triple jump? So I think over the years, really learning the events and how to really best serve the girls' needs in all of the events in track has been the biggest challenge.
Mhm.
And so, I'd try to study and learn as much as I could, and then I'd have a girl who really showed some aptitude for an event, and if I didn't know about that event, then I just started digging in because I didn't want to, I don't want to let these kids down.
Mhm. As you have gone on, have you found yourself knowing more about all the events, obviously, but finding ways to motivate? Obviously, that's probably one of the biggest things as a coach is to connect, build that relationship, and motivate to get them to do their best, whether it is winning a state championship or if it's just running a PR. Has that been something that you've enjoyed along the way?
Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite part is getting to know the girls and pushing different buttons to see, what connects with them and what they can relate to. And it hasn't been just me either. I've had some just outstanding assistants over the years. And, we've been able to communicate amongst ourselves and they've been able to say, hey, this girl came to me and she said that, she didn't like this or whatever. And so there's been a community of people that have really helped along the way. And, me personally, I love the psychological part of it all and
Mhm.
trying to get that because that ultimately that's the real thing that holds everybody back is their ability to mentally bust through whatever adversity they face inside and outside to get to where they need to be.
Is that the cool part? You just said like when they bust through and you see that, do they see that and you're like, wow, that's why all these reps of whatever they're running or they're doing, those are the things, the mental part of it is the hardest part sometimes.
Yeah, and I know the PRs. I'm a total stat hound, so I can tell every girl what her best distance is, what her best time is, and then I tell them you need to know what that is. I go because success isn't necessarily winning a state title because that's just such a rare feat for anybody. But success is being better tomorrow than you were today. So you need to know where you are at today, so tomorrow you have something new to chase.
Is it something where you're holding that stopwatch and you're starting stopping obviously with the start and beginning of every race or a mile long race you're checking the splits after every 400 or whatever it is that ways to motivate to showing time, showing hey, you may only knock 2/10 off your sprint time, but that's 2/10, that's a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of girls, once they know what they're chasing at, most of them want to know their times. They want to know their distances. So that's a motivating, really motivating factors. And then there's other kids who just they like to go out and just beat whoever's in front of them, and that's what they chase. So, that's where it comes into learning how these girls are and what they're about. But definitely in our sport, there's no subjectivity. You can't say, well, I'm a better volleyball player than her. Why am I sitting on the bench? They all know the stopwatch doesn't lie. It doesn't care. The tape measure doesn't lie. It doesn't care. So there's always something concrete to chase.
Well, you said you're competitive and you've won 16 sectional championships over the years. Most of them in Class 1A, just recently in 2A. And you have one state championship. Let me ask you about that state championship. Talk to me about that team. What was that year like? And did you know that that team had a chance to do something special that year?
That was a really unique group of girls. I started actually coaching the core group of that team in basketball when they were in fifth and sixth grade.
Mm.
And I saw something them in them at that time. They were competitive. They worked hard. They got along with each other really well. And I remember telling them in sixth grade, you girls are going to win a state championship if you just stay together and you don't lose this special gift that you guys have created. And then time went on. Our senior year, I thought we would have a pretty good shot at winning with this group. And then, we were ended up being fortunate enough to win it that year. And I got to do it with a lot of that group of girls that I started with back when they were 10 years old. So that was a really special thing for them.
Is it something where you got to have a complete team? You just have to have the right girls? What does it take to win that state title?
At state, you really need top tier individuals or a top tier relay because you've got everybody in the state competing at once, so you're just not going one on one against some other team. So there have been years where I personally thought we had the best team in the state, but when we got to the state track meet, it's such an individual sport that that didn't hold up at that point in time. So for me personally, the way I coach and talk to girls, the sectional championship is our real team goal because that's the last time we get to go event for event for event with anybody. And then down the state, it's a little bit more watered down, and we don't take all of our events.
Mhm. So over the years, you've obviously coached countless, I'll say thousands of girls over the years, over 31 years that you've been doing this. Who are some that stick out? And I know you'll miss some, and we'll forgive them now. I'll forgive you now, and those names they'll be like, hey, don't forget about me. But there's obviously a lot of those girls from the state championship team you probably remember and keep in touch with. Who are some that kind of stick out to you that have been like, wow, they've been really talented over the years?
Yeah, that's God, there's been so many. I mean, we've been fortunate enough to be pretty successful. And so I've had so many just wonderful young ladies and then talented on top of it. I guess the one that always sticks out in my head is Annie Conway, and that was back in '95, and that was our first ever state qualifier that I had been a part of coaching. And so I'll always remember that. And that happened to be the only girl we sent to state that year. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, God, we only sent one kid to state. That kind of stinks. I'm letting 17 other events worth of kids down.
Mm,
So I mean that was I think the impetus on me shaping how I wanted to go about coaching. So she would
sure.
be the first one, and then our state champions along the way. Ellen Kindlesberger in the 400-meter dash was an outstanding runner and just another great kid. Kelsey Hutchins just won triple jump a couple years ago. She's another state champion that kind of rings in my head. And then we really like a lot of our girls are just relay beasts because I
Mm,
really like the relays because if you don't have a stud, but you have four really solid girls, that can take you a long way.
mhm.
I could run off names all day long of just there's been so many just outstanding young women I've coached, and I'd hate to start naming too many, and then because I'm like, oh, I didn't say this girl, I didn't say that
Sure.
girl, and so those
Do
are those I guess are a couple of them.
I've talked to many coaches over the years, and everybody says you know the impact you've made if you get invited to a wedding, if they stay in contact with you. Does that hold true with you? Like, there's some that just like they still reach out every now and then, like, "Hey, coach, congratulations on your Hall of Fame induction," or "Congratulations on the season," things like that.
Yeah, I mean it all. I can't imagine there's not a person on the face of the earth that doesn't love hearing back from people from their past. And
Hmm.
I've had a lot reach out since I've been inducted or since I found out about my induction that they've come back and says, you were such a big part of my life for this, that, the other thing. So, it really touches you and it makes you feel like what you're doing is worth it because to me it's more than a sport, but the sport's important only because it allows you to maybe impact a lot more important things in their life. So
Hmm.
I love going to a good wedding and all that stuff that's come along the way with kids. So it means a lot.
How long do you still want to do this? You said 31 years, that's a great career. But how long do you want to continue to do this?
You know, I I'm going to retire from teaching in another 3 years after this year. My youngest daughter is in eighth grade, and so she's planning on doing track. So she's like, "Well, you can't stop till I'm done, Dad." And so, but I don't really have any intention of quitting anytime soon. It's not work to me. It's not arduous. I get excited every time track season rolls around. So I really love this. So unless something changes, I really don't have a timeline on when I want to stop.
So what you're telling me is the finish line is still far enough down the line you can't see it yet.
Well, either that or I just don't want to look for it. Put my head
That could
down and keep going.
that could be. That could be. Well, Todd, again, congratulations on being inducted into the Illinois Track Cross Country Coaches Association Hall of Fame. When is that induction? Before I let you go.
It is January 10th.
So January 10th. So congratulations on that. Enjoy that day. And then I will look forward to seeing you back on the sidelines of the track in the spring. So congratulations and thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day.
Oh, thank you very much.